Hey, it's 420. Don't forget to light one up for John Halata. You hear me? Light one up for John Halata. He was our friend. He was our brother. One of the best talents in the Tulsa area ever. Spark one up for him today.
Welcome to episode 420 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. And this week is a very special episode. You remember back in the 90s whenever sitcoms would, have one of their lovable characters who could fix their life within, the 22 allotted minutes, and it was a special episode because one of them was dealing with, getting addicted to placebo pills or some shit. There's always some, grander message to it, but it was always a very special episode every once in a while on something that wouldn't be considered special. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Every episode of this podcast is special because every guest is special, right? But the point I'm trying to make in a very long-winded way is that this is a special episode because, as you can tell on the title, and as you can tell if you're listening to this when it releases, it's episode 420, and today is April 20th. It kind of blew my mind a few weeks ago whenever I was setting up, the podcast for the episodes coming up in April, putting the guests together, doing some editing and all that, and it just kind of hit me. I was looking at 418 and all that, and it was like early to mid-April, and I thought, holy crap, episode 420 could line up where I could put it out on 420. So here we go. I'm putting out an episode, dropping it on a Sunday for, I believe, the first time in the history of this podcast. There's another kind of random tangent for you. That's something that I used to overthink in the early days of this podcast. Like, would people listen to this more if it came out on a Monday or a Thursday? I shouldn't release it on a weekend. But as time went on, I started realizing that this is streaming and who really cares? Because you could be listening to this on April 20th, 2025 when it drops, or you could be listening to this on June 12th, 2026 because you came across it. You love Sprout, or you just love listening to people talk about music or 420 or whatever. So with all that being said, happy 420, happy Easter. Today is a dual holiday. So if you're celebrating either of those things, hope you're having a great day. And I had a great day talking to Sprout. We're going to talk about all that. I thought, to go back into that, I thought I've got to get someone on episode 420 that could play into that 420. So I reached out to Willie Nelson, thinking I could talk about how his life has changed in the past, however long it's been, year or two since he had to stop smoking marijuana due to medical reasons. But he declined, so Sprout was my backup. No offense to Sprout. He was, the bridesmaid in this situation, but I think he would understand that if Willie had come through. No, none of that's true. But the truth is, I reached out to Sprout and said, you be on episode 420? It's been too long since you've been on here, so here we are. And in fact, it had been even longer than I realized because he mentioned at the beginning of the interview how long it had been. Last time he was on was episode 212, which came out right about 6 years ago, which to me is pretty baffling. This is Sprout's, I believe, 5th time on the podcast. He's been a long time friend, a long time supporter. And me and, Jason, when he was doing it with me, Jason was involved with every previous Sprout episode. This is the first time I'm doing one solo since then. And I can't believe, like I said, can't believe time flew that quick, 6 years. Math-wise, that doesn't really add up because 212, 6 years ago, 420, 6 years later, shouldn't I be further along than that? But in full disclosure, if you've followed the podcast at all, in the last 2 or 3 years, well, pretty much since Jason left, I got a little more sporadic, sometimes every other week instead of every week, so that's why the numbers aren't as high as you would think. Pun definitely intended. All right, so with all that being said, I'm going to talk more about Sprout, what he's doing now, and of course let you listen to him talk about it. But first, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. They're state licensed. They're Native American owned. They have a female artist on staff, full-time. They've got 30 years of experience. Jake and his crew over there been doing this a long time. hit up Sunset Tattoo to schedule an appointment. You can call, you can text, you can walk in. If you've got an idea ready to go, that's pretty simple. If you have an idea in your head but you don't know how to bring it together, Sunset Tattoo can help you out with that. Hit up their socials. Facebook and Instagram are both Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. Follow them on both those. I personally have had work done by Jake more than once. I'm very happy with it. I know many other people that have had work done at Sunset Tattoo and are happy about it. And I'm sure that many of your favorite bands probably have a band member that's had work done by Sunset Tattoo, because Jake has tattooed a lot of touring musicians throughout the past couple of decades. So hit up Sunset Tattoo and tell them you heard about him on Thunder Underground. DEB Concerts is a concert promoter based in the Tulsa area. They brought tons of great acts to the downtown Tulsa area at the club level and the arena level, and they book the DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma every year. The DEB concert stage is also the stage where the pre-party happens, so if you hold a 3-day ticket, you can hit up that 4th day, that pre-party on Thursday night. This year at Rocklahoma, DEB Concerts has brought in Dee Snider to headline the pre-party, of course, of Twisted Sister fame. He's been on this podcast before, so check that out. Trickster will also be on the pre-party. 2 members of Trickster, including PJ Farley, who is in Fozzy now, have been on this podcast. That day will also feature another legend of the 80s, which has not been announced yet, but that announcement should be coming here within a couple weeks. You can figure it out if you look at the little blurred out name, but the rest of the days on the DEB concert stage will feature headline sets on that stage from Mike Tramp, formerly of White Lion. He's been on this podcast before. Orianthi, Alice Cooper's former guitarist, has tons of great solo work out there. Really excited to see her live. Van Halen, a great Van Halen tribute. Dime Store Riot, a great Tulsa area band who's been on this podcast several times. Another great band that's been on this podcast several times is Fist of Rage. They'll also be on the DEB concert stage. One Night Stand and many other great bands. Hit up rocklahoma.com to see the entire lineup. The other stages, of course, feature acts like Shinedown, Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, Breaking Benjamin. The list is great and long, so check that out. Hit up DEB Concerts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at DEB Concerts. Give them a follow and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. And speaking of Rocklahoma, our other sponsor is Rocklahoma Bitches. They've been an institution at Rocklahoma since 2011. Here we are, 2025, going strong. Christy and Kendra, if you've been out there, you know these 2 ladies. They're always around the campgrounds, they're always around the VIP areas, and they're always around that DEB concert stage that I just talked about. They're very charitable people. They're always giving it to nonprofit organizations. They sponsor the Cancer Sucks benefit that's in Tulsa at the Cain's Ballroom every year towards the end of the year in November or December. And they also donate to other nonprofit organizations. Christy is always bidding on the guitars that Rocklahoma puts up for auction every year that are autographed, and the profits go towards charity. Christy generally always wins one of those every year. And of course, Rocklahoma Bitches have tons and tons of Rocklahoma Bitches swag. And the best part of it is they'll give it all to you for free. Well, not all of it. They'll give you something for free. Try not to be stingy and try not to be demanding. But if you see them out there, usually one of these 2 ladies, have some Rocklahoma Bitches swag on them at some point or another. So hit up Rocklahoma Bitches, and if for some reason you hadn't heard of them and you're out there, tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. All right, let's get into it here. Sprout the Anti-Hero. Sprout has a pretty healthy history with this podcast, more so than most people. I mean, there's been a few people throughout the years that have been on 5, 6, 7 times. But Sprout is also one that has been a part of this podcast, I believe, every episode since episode 50. Sprout's first, I'll get back to that in here in just a second. Sprout's first episode he was on was before Jason or I personally knew him. We had seen Kingshifter live. I believe I had met him once or twice, but never really had that big of a conversation. So in that first episode, we reached out because we liked Kingshifter, and he had moved to Tulsa around that time, I believe. So Jason and I went over to his apartment, sat down and talked to him for quite a while about all kinds of stuff. And then from that point forward, became friends. And then, like I said, episode 50, the band Screaming Red Mutiny was on as a full group. The entire group was on. And Sprout, somewhere in that episode, I believe towards the end, said the infamous line, "Thunder Underground, y'all." It sounds much better when he says it. And that is the bumper that is at the end of every single Thunder Underground episode since then. I believe. I should have looked back. Maybe I didn't do it on episode 51, but I think I thought of it instantly and threw it in there. But regardless, we're 370 episodes deep with Sprout's voice on every single episode. Also, thing that has been brought up, throughout the years since 2018, 2019, both of those years, both summers, I went on a tour called the Booze, Bars, and Guitars Tour. 2018 was called that. 2018 was called Booze, Bars, and Guitars too. And that tour both years was Sprout, along with Dusty Grant. The two of them traveling around the Midwest, playing clubs, playing bars, playing venues, playing all kinds of different things. We got all kinds of great experience. I went on the tour with them as their driver, as their merch seller, just as their, third wheel basically to keep them alive. I don't know. I think they could have kept themselves alive, but, they're two musicians and you know how that goes, right? But we had tons of great times, and that, we talk a little bit about that in this episode coming up, and that's been talked about. I believe in the last episode Sprout was on was 212. Well, I know that's the last episode I was on, but I believe in that episode we spoke about the tour, because that would have been 2019, the year after the first tour. And not long before the second one, Sprout had moved to Colorado, and that's where we kicked off that tour from. Me and Dusty met up with him there. But the point being, Sprout and I have spent, I guess, basically a month together in a minivan with Dusty Grant, over the span of a couple years, and many times throughout the years since, seen each other, hung out, talk. It's been too long. We talk about that coming up. But one other thing, jumping back, as you heard there at the very beginning of this episode, Sprout's voice, and you heard me just mention episode 50 with Screaming Red Mutiny. John Halata was on that episode of Sprout. So that's another one that you need to go check out. John Halata is another guy that's been mentioned throughout the years on this podcast because he was such an exceptional talent. And unfortunately, his life was taken from us several years ago on Christmas Day. So, like Sprout said, with it being 420, or even whatever day you're listening to this, light one up, or raise one up, or just lift one up, whatever it is you do, in honor of Halata. And as they say, hashtag whole lot of love. All right, what else did I want to mention here about Sprout before we jump into the interview? Kingshifter. Kingshifter is what Sprout is most well known for. And Kingshifter had been on a hiatus. And when I say hiatus, they'd broken up. I actually don't remember the details, and even if I did, it's not something I would get into. I try my best to, not bring up sensationalized type stuff just to try to get listens. It's always fun when someone else brings it up and we can go into it, but all that to say that we spoke about Kingshifter pretty much in every episode, I think, but in that last one, 212, I believe it was the one where we were talking about it, and he mentioned, I'd ask possibility of it coming back and all that, and he talked a bit about it. And I don't remember, again, I should have done a little better research on this. I think it was Kink, one of the guys had listened to the episode because I'd, tagged Kingshifter and then reached out to Sprout, and then they reconnected and then eventually reformed. And Sprout, had made that claim, later on that it was thanks to that podcast episode. So I've always felt, my and Jason's tiny bit in helping a band that we loved and that many others loved and love as well, help them get back together. So I was pretty honored, to be a small part in the history of Kingshifter. But this whole time I've been speaking about old stuff. Let's talk about current stuff. Strength and Agony is a Tulsa-based band that Sprout joined about a year ago. And I kind of thought that's cool, that the fact that Sprout joined this band that was already named, right? And Strength and Agony is very much the type of name you would expect from a Sprout project, which I think was incidentally very cool. But Strength and Agony has their first single, which is out now. Came out April 1st. As you could tell by now, that definitely wasn't a joke. That wasn't an April Fool's joke. The song is out on all the streaming platforms, so I implore you to go check this out. Sprout's going to talk all about it coming up, but it's a great, great song. Looking forward to what Strength and Agony has coming in the future. Hopefully they release more singles. Hopefully we get to a point to where we've got an EP or an album out there. So check out Strength and Agony. Give them a follow on the socials. And let's jump into this now. Here is Sprout, the Anti-Hero.
Man, holy cow, I missed the hell out of you, bro.
Yeah, same, man, same.
I tell my kids about some of the adventures.
Yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah, they think it was like I sat there and told them about, the booze bars and guitars tours that you drove on with me and Dusty Grant, and they're like, that was the most dad joke tours I've ever heard. Like, yeah, for the most part,
Yeah. Yeah, everything
But it
about
was
that. It's a
fun.
good way to describe a dad joke, yeah.
For real.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Like when I texted you, my episode 420 was actually going to line up where I could put it out on 420. So I thought, what better way to celebrate that than bring on Sprout?
I'm high right now. Shit, I mean, not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you thought of me. Like I said, like I still listen to Thunder Underground, and you know, I'm really happy you kept it going, man. I'm really happy. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
I appreciate that, man. On your end, you viewed Strength and Agony last year. Talk a little bit about this band for people that might not be familiar with it yet.
The band is called Strength and Agony,
Yeah.
and we're a trio. Horace Horace Young is the guitar player. Ryan Coker, he's our drummer, and I am singing and playing bass. So
Right, huh?
that's new for me. It's been interesting. I've been having fun with it. We I don't know. We're pretty much a groove metal kind of sludge, aspects of stoner. We like riffs and things like that. We figure there's no shortage of like people playing as fast as possible these days. So let's let's just like make some grooves and hit people over the head. We're not getting any younger,
Yeah.
and we're making music that we still feel like we're not acting accordingly. So that's good.
The decision to play bass in a band, was that something that came out of necessity because you were, hey, we need a bassist, I'll try it out, or were you already like
Well,
kind of looking for something in that vein?
actually, I've been in this band a year.
Yeah. Wow.
I really didn't have any interest in being in a band at the time, but Horace sent me a text message and he said he already had this band going. It was called Strength and Agony. He sent me some videos of them playing live and their old singer. And I was like, well, the music sounds all right. Let me go check it out. So in the jam room, there was a bass player. His name was Eddie, and really good guy, cool guy. I get to the jam room, and I know Horace, and I've seen Ryan around, and I know I've seen Eddie around at times too, but I really didn't know them. So I was pretty tamed in there. I was pretty quiet. They're just kind of like, whoa, this is not what we're used to seeing. It's like, well, no, it's time for business. So around the third practice, I came out of my shell and it was all good. So back in November, Eddie stepped down and
Okay.
I took over bass duties. What was interesting about that, Eddie couldn't make it to practice one day. And I'm like, well, I can play the bass. And so instead of canceling practice just so we could practice, I played the bass and they were like, holy shit, you can play a bass. I'm like, kinda, you know. I wasn't going to I wasn't gonna come out and like brag on myself like I'm some like uber professional because I have not put the time into bass in my life like that ever. So a few shows later, Eddie stepped down and I just took over bass and I just been hitting it hard and playing as much as I can and I spent hours on it. I'm just really enjoying it.
Was it
So
like an instant dynamic change? Because you went from being, the singer to being the bassist and a singer and shifting it to kind of a power trio type dynamic. Does it feel like a different band on stage now?
yes,
Okay.
I'm usually holding the microphone.
Right.
Excuse me. The one time I did play guitar in a band, it was the Green Country Irate
Right.
uh, with members of Machine in the Mountain, and Mike Starkey used to be in Screaming Red Mutiny with me, and uh, I played guitar for a little while, and then Patrick came in, and so I'm like, well, you guys are awesome. Let me just go to holding the mic. So that's where that went. But I had fun playing guitar in a band while it lasted. It was just what was best the for the music, for the order, so to speak, the inner workings of that. I'm not as skilled as the other two, so why don't I just do what I do best, and these two can do what they need to do. So now here I am playing a bass, and now I'm writing songs, writing riffs as a bassist, which is totally different
Wow.
than a guitar. I really learned how different these instruments are.
Yeah.
After all these years of being around guitars and basses, I'm really discovering how different these things are. But it's been fun, and the music has changed a lot. Um, we like I said, we're more riff and groove oriented, whereas the stuff that was being played when I came in, um, it had aspects of metalcore, which I like some metalcore, but I'm not really all that big on metalcore. But they have other aspects. I was really drawn to the groove. There were certain songs that they had already been playing that kind of to me sounded like um, acid bath. Some things that sounded
Mhm.
already kind of sounded like River Runs Red. That was the
Oh yeah.
album. What is that thing? Uh, God, I'm gonna
Life of
get
Agony.
shot for this by the homie. Yes, Life of Agony.
Yeah.
Uh, there's already like songs that sounded like those a little bit to me, but definitely we brought in some more, like with our new songs. We've been bringing in more kind of riffy, bluesier type things, a lot of doomy stoner type things. So it's turning out pretty good. We're about to release our single soon, so or by the time you guys hear this, hell, it'll probably be already out April 1st. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, because this is coming out, like I said, on the 20th. So that song will be out nearly 3 weeks by this point. So, kind of going into that, I mean,
right.
I got the chance to listen to it a little while ago. It's got kind of everything you've been talking about, that great groovy and stonery kind of vibe. It's got a hook that people can sing along with, and it's got, a really good low end on that bass of yours. So, your thoughts on the song, your guys' first kind of debut single with you in the band.
Well, that's a song that they already had,
Okay.
and I, you know, they were they were you they the other three guys were jamming with Chuck Cooley, and I guess that was a song that Chuck was performing with them, and Chuck was no longer in that ensemble. And since they wrote the song, they kept it, and I sang to it. So eventually, later on, learned how to play it. So,
Okay.
so that song is basically about Chuck Cooley. Uh,
Okay.
you know me. If there's something I need to say, I'm gonna say it. Man, I do my best sometimes, and it don't bother me. I just do my best not to dislike the guy, but sometimes he makes it incredibly easy. And if you know who he is, you probably know why. And that's all I need to say about that. But for the most part, it's about my frustration with that. Um, and I mean, I know writing a song ain't gonna change him. I think if anything, I've known Chuck long enough to know that he's more than capable of being a better person. I know I can be an asshole, or I know I can need improvements. I'll say so. I need a lot of fucking help. I need a lot of fucking work. But, you know, if something bothers me like that and I got to write a fucking song, yeah, it's, I had something to say. I'm just keeping it fair and real. I need work too, but I ain't got his fucking problems. You know?
On the music side of that, when you're recording that, like how much different was the recording of bass for you, like in the studio compared to, what you're used to with vocals? And well, you recorded guitar in the studio with obviously Sprout the Anti-Hero with your solo music.
Yes, yeah. Um, I would say the focus was no different. It was just the first time I actually heard my bass recorded. So like, I mean, anybody that knows anything about recording knows that what you sound like raw coming out of that amp in the jam room is not how you're going to sound on the record. So um, narrowing down a bass tone, that was fun because I mean I'm into it. I'm just trying, I'm trying to get the best sound possible. Um, it was different. I had instead of just singing, I have to be worried about whether or not I've got a 9 volt in my bass, or I've got to worry about strings. I got to worry about all this stuff. So it's just time management for me anyway. Because before shows, I like to smoke weed and drink beer and then pick up a mic. I'm not used to setting up equipment really, so I
Right.
had to work on that. And I'm just a singer learning new things. I still wouldn't necessarily call myself a bassist yet, but I'm working hard at it. I'm trying not to
Was there
disappoint my
like,
family.
I mean, yeah, was a guy that's been, doing music for a long time, starting in on something like in a new avenue like this, playing bass? Is there anybody that got to be way different than when you're young and kind of latching on to influences? But is there any bassist now that you kind of look at in your kind of development in that area of your musical career?
Well, I'm I don't think anyone's ever too old to be influenced, but there's always been bass players that I've always thought that were really good and really solid. Like when I started playing bass and singing, I was listening to a lot of King's X, a
Okay.
lot of it. Like I was started listening to Cream, anything that would kind of help me get inspiration for what I'm in. Trios, I even started listening to Hendrix Experience again. I own these records, but I've been listening to them again just to see how they make things sound so full and
Yeah.
what they're doing to bring out the nuances and making the most of what they are and what they're doing. I mean, I don't think you, and as far as Cream is concerned, I don't think you could have put any other three musicians together and had that sound come out.
Right.
You know, something very unique. So that's what I'm kind of trying to be inspired by.
Yeah. Then you've got like these kind of legendary dudes, that we're in the position you're in where it's bass and vocals, where you got, I mean, like you just said, the band you just mentioned, then you've got like Peter Steele and Lemmy, of course.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean, I've always listened to funk music, so yeah, I've just I'm learning things at home on my own that I'm not using in this band. I'm learning how to slap. I'm learning how to thump. I'm learning how to pluck. I'm learning how to do all that stuff. And I ain't gonna lie, some of these online courses really work.
yeah.
You put in the program, it's just imperative that you put in the work. It just is. Like I'd never go on stage thinking I'm gonna get my ass kicked. I got to put the work in, do my best.
I mean, it's got to be refreshing too to know that, you, like I said, this far in your career, you're still putting in, the effort to expand and do something new. And even though you're playing, in genres you've been a part of, you're doing it in a different way now, which is cool.
Yeah. I I've been seriously considering like not necessarily stopping being a musician, but kind of stop playing out. here in the next 5, 6 years. I've been considering that. But this situation here has kind of led me to believe that maybe I ain't done. Maybe there's other things I might want to do and might want to try.
Right.
So I've said never before, and I probably shouldn't have. So I can't say here in the next 5, 6 years I'm going to put it down for sure. I can't. But I know I'm not getting any younger, and I also know there's some things I still want to do with my life. But I'm always gonna play music. I mean, you might see me out there. Who knows? But
Well, what's the plan
yeah.
as far as new music from Strength and Agony? Now that you got this song out, are you guys looking to put out more singles? Or are we looking forward to like an EP or an album down the line? Or
Um, we may put out a new single here in the next couple of months. We already have one in the can, ready to go. So we're just kind of testing the waters with this single, and um, I mean, we're putting it out independently. So we're doing everything we can there. It's funny because these days, if you put out a record, you're automatically trying to be a businessman. So
right? Yeah,
you got to do it yourself now. I mean, the internet did one good thing for us. It gave us control, well, more control. But at the same time, we didn't have the knowledge or resources somebody with a major label had before all that. I
right.
explained to one person one time that back in the day, if a record label heard something about your band, they literally had to spend money to put an A&R guy on an airplane and fly him out to wherever you are to have that guy sit there and watch you play for like 5 to 40 people
Right.
and deem whether or not you're worthy enough to be signed to a label. I mean, that's a lot of money already.
Right.
Money labels don't have anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're
it's
like,
like the
man, it must lose like that. Yeah, it was like that.
it's like the flip side of that is it's like now pretty much anybody can put content out there, and it's like now there's so much stuff, and there's tons of great stuff that we would have never heard otherwise, but then there's also a ton of crap out there too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just it. I mean, when somebody told me that there's room for everybody, and I guess, damn it, there is, but
Right.
it's really hard to be seen through the muck. I mean, you're trying to find a diamond in mud, literally. So I mean, I'm used to liking music most people don't really like anyway, and so I know where to find that stuff. That stuff screams out like anything,
Yeah.
anything like today's modern hardcore or whatever quote unquote core band you want to call. A lot of that stuff's good. I like a lot of it. You know, uh, I gravitate more toward that stuff. But a lot of that, even though the niche is small, a lot of that's bad.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that stands out, though. There's a lot of stuff that stands out.
Yeah.
That's just every genre of music.
On the subject of this being 420, like I mentioned up at the front of this episode, kind of going into that for a minute, like how much of a factor throughout your songwriting, going back to Kingshifter and everything from that point to now and before that, has weed been
Mm-hmm.
a factor in your like the writing process for you? Is it always a thing, or is it just like, when the mood strikes you?
I mean, I've never used weed for inspiration.
Okay.
I can't remember a time where I ever wrote a song where I sat down with a pen and a notepad and lit up a joint and started thinking. There's just never been a time that I can remember where I wrote like that. I usually have to experience things first in my life because a lot of what I write it can be personal. A lot of what I write is kind of introspective. I don't think I needed pot to do that, but I mean, I smoke weed because of anxiety. I smoke weed because uh, it keeps me calm. It keeps me level. I smoke weed to keep from killing people sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's all that is. It's for me, it is kind of medicine. I've never been one of those musicians that experiment with drugs just to see what I can get out of the music. It just if it's natural, it just comes out of you. I mean, and maybe there's things about, people. I mean, I'm positive because people have said so, but I'm pretty positive there's things that people are already feeling, and those feelings and expressions were just enhanced with those substances. So I was
Yeah.
just never, I was just never really on that level like that. So
Do you think, like, how much music do you love, like, personally? Do you think that those specific artists, like, that it was extreme, like, say, Matt Pike or someone where it's like, that, like,
um,
they're always in that zone, that point whenever they're writing or recording? Like, is there a ton of musicians or music out there that you feel falls into that category for you?
absolutely. You know, it's funny because Kingshifter, we were kind of seen and labeled as a stoner rock, you know, band. And of course, while we had things that sounded similar to, let's say, Cathedral or maybe even some aspects of Crowbar or maybe Caius, those kinds of bands that, you know, really had kind of that stigma with pot in some aspects. Um, we were never really we never really marketed ourselves or put ourselves out there like we were that kind of band. And after the first drummer left, I was the only guy in the band that smoked weed. So that, I mean, it was never a part of our process for things. I I I happen to enjoy pot, and I think anybody who tries it and does get the benefits from it, I think it's good. I think it's good for them if that's what they choose.
I mean, I know this is kind of random and putting you on a spot, but have you ever heard a song, like not maybe just a song or an artist that you're not really fond of, and then you're high, and then all of a sudden you're like, I think I get this now. Because that's
Bro,
happened to
you
me a few times.
I get crap for this. I get crap for this sometimes. I certainly got crap for it back then. But like I like Pink Floyd. I'm a fan. But for whatever reason, I could not get into The Wall. Okay.
Yeah.
It, it, I fucks with it now. I dig it now. The Wall is a great achievement for that band. Okay. I was telling Kink, the guitar player Kingshifter, we were talking about Pink Floyd, and he talked about how awesome he thought The Wall was because he was a kid when that came out, so he knew right, he knew all that. Me, I really did that. Pink Floyd really didn't come into my radar until I was in high school, and I saw kids wearing shirts, and of course they kind of look like hippies. That kind of
Yeah.
not that it turned me off from Pink Floyd, but like I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm with that, but um, no matter how many times I heard The Wall, I could not get into it. And I told Kink that, and Kink said, "Man, you must not be smoking the right weed." So here it is, probably 7, 8 months down the line. I'm at home with my wife at the time, and I'm listening to Pink Floyd's The Wall, and I have this strand of weed called Death Star. I roll me up a little joint, take a few puffs, and the first riffs of that record ring in. I'm like, man, this sounds gorgeous. I mean, it just sounded gorgeous. And I I didn't see the movie until I was probably 36.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in an all black neighborhood. There were just some things I weren't going to be
Right.
exposed to till later. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could tell you all about the Wiz. You okay? Like, I could tell you all about that.
Yeah.
But I I listened to it, and I called Kink. I was like, Kink, this record's the shit, bro. He said, "What you smoking?" I said, Death Star. Like he's like, oh, okay, good. You found the right one. Now can you do? I can do it. So, but that's my one story about how I thought something that wasn't all that great was actually great because I smoked the right weed.
Right.
And I mean, I can tolerate that record now sober. I think it's great, you know. And to be honest with you, I don't know why I didn't take to it the first time I heard it. I guess I was just used to hearing more spacey, ambient kind of bluesy stuff from the other records.
Yeah, for me it was kind of Mastodon's kind of that way. I mean, it's been probably 8, 10 years ago now, but forever when I heard Mastodon, I'm like, well, this is good, but it just didn't connect to me in any way. And then just at one point it finally did, and now I just absolutely have loved them ever since.
What did you smoke?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, some of this music, I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are. You probably had to smoke weed or something to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like there's no way I could even tolerate um, pop music in a grocery store without having 4 beers first and knowing I'm gonna be, you know. So
Yeah.
I shouldn't be buying collard greens at the store while listening to Taylor Swift. I don't hate her. It just ain't my shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, y'all ain't got no Lionel Richie in this motherfucker? Like, really? Oh well. That's all right. You don't take long.
Yeah. We mentioned, Kingshifter a few times, and you guys did a little bit here in the past couple years, and you're on good terms and all that. Is
Mhm.
there anything kind of still out there of that happening more in the future, or is that kind of just like a part of the past now?
We're still a band, technically.
Okay. Okay.
What's going on right now is that Derek and Kink are now partners and they own a business. They run a bar and pizza place in Wichita, Kansas. So a lot of their time and their effort needs to be devoted into making this business go. And I understand that, man. It's a livelihood thing.
Right.
So, that's not an owning a business, any business, and for that matter, especially a restaurant or bar, you got to put your focus into it. And so I understand that. I'll always be around. So that's how I look at it. And I just recently played at their club. I was the first artist they booked in that place. Uh, Played there in February.
Was that
No,
with
wait, I
Strength
played
and
in
Agony or
January.
solo or
No, just solo.
okay.
Just solo. I played there in January 21st. It was a fun show. There's a lot of people there. The food's really good, and the drinks are top notch. They've done a great job. It's crazy because when I walked in the door and I started looking around the walls, there's me and the guys everywhere on the walls. There's pictures of Kingshifter everywhere. I'm like, wow. I
Well,
was like, it's just weird me walking into a bar and my face is on there. It's not a mugshot.
right. Or a don't serve this guy type thing, yeah.
Right. You know, it's not some still shot from like surveillance footage.
Right. Do
You
you know
know.
who this man is? Yeah.
No, but I mean they're doing well, and we'll be back eventually. We will. We ain't got no plans to hang it up.
Very cool. I mean, you mentioned it right out the gate, like the booze bars and guitars tours. I went on with
Hmm.
you and Dusty Grant, and all the stuff. You and Kingshifter, did tons of touring, and since the pandemic, the projects you've been a part of, you've went out and played around, but you haven't done extensive touring. Do you miss that aspect of the music? Even though you kind of mentioned earlier you've thought about putting up live completely, but now that you're a little reinvigorated, is it something you're looking to do with Strength and Agony at all?
Well, um, anybody that's ever known me over the years, I'll quit jobs to go on tours.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm realizing about myself, I mean, I can't necessarily speak for anybody else that I'm in projects with because we are all older. We got families and some of us have mortgages and, you know, things we have to maintain. So a lot of that, as you get older, you kind of have to look at things uh, in more reasonable terms. Like for me, I would love to go out there. I've always been a vagabond. I've always I've always been addicted to the lines on the highway, man. Just,
Yeah.
going and place every night and, you know, drinking beer and entertaining strangers that, become fans and eventually become friends. Man, that was a big part of it. Um, I've met a lot of people, and if it all ended tomorrow as far as a career, I'd be okay. And I have no one to thank but the people that listen to any project I was a part of because we all worked hard on them. We all put our best into them. If Strength and Agony, if I get with the guys and talk to them, hey, how far do you really want to go? I know how to get going, you know. But the thing is, we all have responsibilities and we all have, like, some of us have things that we like more than music, that there's and that's okay. But you really, for that type of life, have to have a reason to be out there, and you have to have the personnel to be out there. I mean, you're not going to want to have some guy on the road that's constantly going to miss home. Like, we're out here to do this. I won't, like, if I go out there like that again, I want to make sure I'm out there with people that actually love being out there. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how that works. But I also know from my previous experiences touring for years relentlessly that that's not necessarily feasible these days. So I don't mind going out for a week or two every few months. I don't mind that. But we have to make sure that's what we want to do. And I guess if anything else, we have to be financially covered at home. I mean, it's all practical.
Yeah.
It's all practical.
Right. It's hard to even believe it's already been almost 6 years since the second Booze, Bars, and Guitars tour. It's just time kind of flies.
Yeah, I spoke to Dusty Grant uh, just before the new year. Just before the new year, that was the last time I talked to him. It was on his telephone call. He's good, man. He's in good spirits, man. I do miss him playing music. I really do. He's a man. He's one of the better men I've known as an adult. You know, he's like me. He wears his heart on his sleeve, man. That's just the kind of guy he is. And I miss being around characters like that because they make me better. There's just something about my friendship with Dusty I'll never forget, man. I'll always cherish it. You know, I, every time I go back home to Wichita, I want to go see him, but I'm only in town for so long. I'm usually there for a show. I need to go back there when I'm not under some professional capacity. You
Yeah.
know, we still keep in touch. I still cheer for my man. He's doing good. He's doing good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him and how his career's going, but we do want him to hopefully step back into the music vein at some point.
Yeah, I think he'll do that one day on his own terms for
Yeah.
sure. Um, right now, his heart really ain't in it right now, from what he told me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
He wants to do other things.
Yeah, I think we all kind of
That's
go through that. I mean, I've been through that where I'd go months without just kind of dragging my feet on this podcast. And then now I'm kind of back in a period where, I'm been invigorated about it. So it just kind of, I think it comes and goes in any aspect in your life.
I totally understand. I've been through that too. I'm like, there's times even when things were good with music, it's just like, man, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
You know? And then the hats you have to start wearing because you're doing a lot. I mean, it comes a time, especially this day and age, where if you're in a band, you almost have to be content creators. You almost have to be designers. You have to do all this stuff, and it becomes a little much. And I see a lot of art suffering because so much time is put into these videos, which is fine. They're necessary. They're necessary. I'm not trashing them. They're necessary, but I'm more in a place in my life where I really want to focus on the art instead of um, beating people over the head with online marketing. I really want to put out a good product with music and to make sure that's what we're doing in a band. We're making music, and all the other stuff will come later. We will adapt to that, no problem. But a lot of that has to do with budget, of course, because to have something super professional, you need the cash. And I just want to really focus on putting out a good product, and I want to utilize streaming, wherever they can find us. Hey, that's where you find us. And that's just that. We got a series of shows coming up. Strength and Agony. We're playing in the Dallas Fort Worth area in June. We're looking forward to that. We're also playing Rock the Equinox. We got selected for that, so that's going to
Oh,
be
nice.
great.
Yeah. So you're opening
We're going
up
to be
for our
playing.
old buddies with Scattered Hamlet. Like,
Yes.
I guess by the time this
This is
airs, that'll be later this week.
right.
Yeah.
Right. We opened up. Well, I would say we opened up for them. I think we went on after them. So we played a show with them last summer, and we didn't know we were going to be like, going on after everybody else. So I was like, okay, cool. I never cared what slot we play. And so they stuck around. And of course, I've been friends with Jode for well over a decade now, probably 12 years. We've been crossing paths and playing shows together on the road and things like that. But it's always fun to like continue to see like, people that you've been on the road with still doing it, and they see you still do it. It's like, hell yeah, we're still here, brother. Like we're gonna be dead in 2 weeks. Hey, you're still here, brother. All right, I'm not alone anymore. Yeah, we're looking forward to playing with Scattered Hamlet. We're gonna have a good time.
Playing off, what we talked about with like just all the stuff you've done throughout your career. Have you ever thought about the fact that you could obviously be a pain in the ass because it would take a pretty big budget and a lot of, agreements, I think, with other people. But with all the music you've been a part of recording throughout your careers, you could put together a pretty healthy career retrospective of Sprout on vinyl or something.
Well, I I mean, I think I could find there was like maybe 4 or 5 bands in my life where we never recorded anything, and this would have been pre 2010. You know, um, I could pretty much find most of what I've done over the years, either from somebody having a CD, which people still have CDs from bands I've been a part of years ago,
Yeah.
or yeah, they'll send them to me if I need it. They'll rip them off in MP3s and send them to me. The studio that some of this music has been recorded in, they've been closed for years, and I don't even know who has the masters or if those things still even exist. Because back then, you the masters were stored usually at the studio, even though you might have paid for them. You could take them home, things like that. But yeah, I don't know what happened to any of those, which I'm pretty sure might be necessary, might not. It's all a sound quality issue, I guess, from that point. But yeah, I can pretty much find most of what I've been a part of.
I mean, is that something that, I mean, would interest you at all? Or is that just like too, I mean, I don't know. You've got your Sprout the Hero stuff, that is obviously, more laid back. And then, of course, you've got all the metal stuff. But,
Mhm.
I've seen a few artists do that. That's just why it kind of intrigues me. I don't know. I just feel like you've got enough content out there between the different bands, but it's just, again, a huge, probably expensive process.
I mean, so what I'm curious about, because I know like a lot of people for a long time really didn't have the concept of owning their own publishing. So when you recorded a record and you had it pressed through disc makers or something like that, and you got your 100 copies of your CD, they took care of the publishing.
Hmm.
I believe they own the publishing, not unless they sold it off somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? But we never owned the publishing or anything like that, or had our
Wow.
rights back to that music. So I have no idea. And a lot of this was so long ago, and I
Yeah.
was so young, didn't know the things that I for sure know now. I mean, if I knew all that stuff, I would have took better care. I tell people all the time, had I really started succeeding when I was young, I would have found some way to screw it up. Uh,
Yeah.
but the more I worked at it, man, the more I learned. Like, all right, these people ain't playing around; they are serious. You get into it. You want to be a part of. Like, I felt like an NBA player as a musician. Like, I love this game. Like, it was awesome. But you
Yeah.
know,
So many factors, in my life I could, attribute to that.
me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Me too, man. I think I could possibly like get together, like put together 10 songs that I wrote in the last 15 years that I think people would enjoy, and I think people would get a good uh perspective of who I am as an artist. Because honestly, that's all that really matters to me with music anymore. I love being an artist. I ain't gonna go all weird crazy from my norm anyway, but I just love what I do, and I love what I'm a part of. And I I I think people will appreciate the evolution of a collection like that. So I'll consider like getting together like 10 songs and then talking to a ton of people I was in a band with that I probably haven't seen in years and see
Yeah.
how they're doing. And might take some time, but I'll think about that. Get back to you. 10 songs that I've sang on over the years that people would like.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Man, I remember being in a band called Zero Cell back home in Wichita, and uh, I, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I was sitting at home and I was listening to this stuff, and I'm like, I feel so bad for this kid. Like, and it was me. I was like, man, I've come a long way. I was angry, like, woof, she, but I mean, and that's part of what drew people to me at that point. I would say stuff that most people couldn't say or didn't want to say or didn't want to be caught heard saying.
Yeah.
So is this as long as it's the truth? I mean, say it.
Well, when you listen back to, something like that you did that long ago, besides just seeing how much you've changed as a person, does the music like still resonate with you the same way it did, even though you're kind of like in a different place in your life?
Yeah, because I remember the excitement. Like there's certain times when you're in the jam room and you're writing something that is just kick ass and that's sounding good to everybody's ears and the electricity and the energy in the air and me being young and ambitious and hungry, literally hungry because the nigga was homeless. Okay,
Yeah.
in zero, I was couch surfing and all this other stuff, and that's all I had to look forward to. Now, eventually, I did look forward to a job, which I got, and so that was cool. But at that, you remember those times. It doesn't matter what stage in your life; you just remember that energy and something about what you were doing at that time. I mean, I guess it's sort of like that for a lot of people, minus or plus or minus a few differences.
Yeah. I'm really glad we got to do this. It's been, way too long since we even talked or hung out in the first place. But yeah, getting back on the podcast because
Oh man,
it's
it's
just,
an honor.
I think this is probably your fifth or sixth time, but it's been at least a couple, 2 or 3 years since the last one. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think the last time I was on the podcast, I was I was 2 days away from moving to Colorado,
oh, damn, it's
and
been
you
that
and
long ago.
Jason,
Oh,
yeah, I think you and Jason Wood came to the Airbnb I was staying at, and you guys interviewed me.
that's
And I
right.
remember I I I, I forgot the band I was talking trash on that day. Yeah, they didn't like that much, but hey, they shouldn't have opened their fucking mouths. I ain't got no beef with them today, man. It's a long time ago. Alter Blood, I don't think is even a band anymore.
Oh,
They
that's
all
right.
right with
Yeah.
me. No hate, you know, no hate. But just
Yeah.
shut the fuck up when Jane thinks is talking. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, man, it's always cool to be on, with you and chatting, man. We always have good conversations. I think the last time we hung out in person was on my birthday. You took me to Buffalo Wild Wings for my birthday, and we had lunch. I think
That's
this is the
right.
last time we hung out. It
Damn,
was the
that
last time we hung out. Well, you've
that was
been globetrotting, bro.
that was probably like 22, right, or something. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So like my man's on the move. Like you had time to see little old me. All right, cool. Man.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
man.
leaving in a few days. Well, by the time this airs, I'm gone for like 5 weeks into California working Coachella and Stagecoach and all that stuff.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You seem to be enjoying your career just fine. I'm happy for you, bro. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Man, there's too many damn haters, man. Too
Yeah.
many haters. Like even people I don't like. If there's something that's good happening to them, great. You know what I'm saying? I love you, so I'm always going to support you. So it's that's what that's about. Shit, you kept two musicians alive on the road for 2 weeks at a time. You're good, Trent. You're good. I will put my life in your hands any day of the week.
In a minivan with great gas mileage, you know. So,
On fleek, motherfucker. Yes, yes, 100.
man.
I hope Dusty listens to this, man. Yeah, there are a lot of good fond memories of those tours, man. They were fun.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
hope he
Like,
hears.
I just grabbed a shirt and put it on earlier. Think of it until like literally right before I sat down to record this with you. I was washing my hands in my restroom, looking in the mirror, and the shirt was this band, the Green River Kings, which played.
Uh-huh.
I forgot the name of it. The Hilltop Festival. You know that
Yes,
Brian put on. They
Helen's Hilltop. Yeah.
Yeah, they put on. You know they were one of the bands playing that day, and I just happened to buy the T-shirt. You know to support the band and happened to have it on the same day I'm talking to you. So random,
Yeah,
totally random info there, but
I told my sons about how we moved the car like 20 feet because it was parked in somewhere where it shouldn't have been. I was
man,
like,
I forgot about that story. Like, how many people was that in that group? That was there like 8 or 10 of us?
I think there's like 11 or 12 of the biggest dudes there.
Yeah,
Like I remember them having to bounce the front of the car to move it and slide it because it had the weight. But that car was hopping, bro. I was like, I hope this shit don't land on my foot. Like we all flew in that car, man. It was funny.
yeah. Man, if
See, kids, when you do this, you get to have good times and tell interesting stories.
that's right.
And if you ever get rich, that's all you'll ever have. So enjoy
Yeah,
that.
man, if TikTok had been a thing back then, we could have got rich off of with all
Right.
those stupid adventures.
I'm still the only one I know without a TikTok.
Smart.
I mean, I don't have anything against TikTok. I mean, I just don't have the time to like do a lot of social media. I'm still primarily like Facebook and Instagram. I like Instagram because I get to see everything I want and nothing I want to see, you know?
Yeah.
So like anything political, I don't see it on Instagram. I watch on Instagram, I watch nothing but primarily outdoor cooking videos, one man bands, street musicians, um, and those ad lib Scooby Doo ghetto things. I love those. Where Fred, where Fred's talking about hitting from the back and busting it wide open. I just die laughing. I'm like, man, Fred's never sounded this black. Then I realized it was AI or some shit like that. I was like, oh man, this is hilarious. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Facebook, you see you entirely too much, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I might say too much, but but there's a difference between the two platforms. Instagram is for me is much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Like I used to be more Facebook, but then yeah, at some point years ago, yeah, it just became way too much info from too many people. So stick to the ones where you can kind of control it and just see, and not have to read people's bullshit.
Like for real, man. Like the other day, I was on Facebook and I saw this post, and for no reason at all, I just had enough. And I just grounded my teeth and out loud screamed at my phone, "Fuck you and your bone spurs." I said that shit out loud. Oh, that person wasn't sitting here to hear me say that. I would just sounded so insensitive. But you have to understand, on Facebook, there's always something wrong with certain people. Like there's always something wrong. Like I, I've been hit by the Mack truck, which is life before, several times, you know. But you get out the hospital and you get back up and you keep walking on, right? I don't have those kinds of problems anymore. So when I see somebody constantly like begging for attention for bad stuff, I stubbed my pinky toe at night when I was going to get a drink of water. Like I don't give a fuck, man. This ain't traumatizing to me. Like this warrants a Facebook post.
Right?
Now, when I cut my fingertip off, that warranted a Facebook post. I want to see that. I want people to see that shit. Okay? That's cool.
Yeah.
Injury to yourself, that's great. I'll see that all day long. But don't tell me that your life is garbage and you have a car. Loves you. Probably a cat.
Yeah.
I like cats. They are, you know. Yeah, just I don't know. I like good news. I like giving people good news.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't argue with people anymore because I'm undefeated. And for real, people don't want to argue with me online. I retired in like 2016. For real, I've literally not argued with anyone online since 2016.
That's a good run. Yeah.
Hey, my peace and sanity is important to me.
Yeah.
You know, I've accepted a long time ago that, you know, the world is crazy. You know, there's only certain things you can control. And so the things I have control over is, you know, me, my decisions, you know, where I go, what I do, who I spend my time with. I don't have to complain about anything if I have the right things in my life. The
Yeah.
world's going to be the world, you know, but people spend a lot of time, you know, being nosy over things that doesn't even pertain to them, you know.
Yep.
I could go into specifics, but hell,
Oh,
pick anything. Somebody's nosy about it, and people don't want to mind their own business, and people want to tell somebody else how to live. Well, I don't have those people in my life. We all
yeah.
have the government in our life, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but for the most part, the people you associate with on a regular basis, you know, you have a choice in that. You have a choice to be nice to people. You have a choice to be respectful. You know,
Yeah. The majority of the people that are the loudest, are the ones that, like
yeah.
you said, are they're yelling about something that has nothing to do with them. Doesn't affect them in the least. So like, what's it matter to you? That's just what baffles me. I'm just like, live your life, in your way. If someone else isn't hurting someone, then do whatever the fuck you want.
I mean, it, I mean, they act like that until it does happen to them. You know,
Yeah.
I, I know a guy online. I see his shit every day, and he's basically, you know, he's one of them Viking white dudes. I think they cool. Shit, I wonder if they let brothers into Valhalla. Well, anyway, like he's saying all this stuff. I wouldn't call him a racist. I don't think he said anything. I've never seen. I've been following this dude for years. He never said anything that I would, you know, think would be racist. But all of a sudden, he has a black grandchild, and he is the nicest man ever online now. It's amazing. I
Wow.
was thinking about sending him a personal invite to the fucking cookout, bro. He totally don't want me. He's cool, man. He's cool. I'll give it a cookout. Just leave your hammer in the car. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Just leave your hammer in the car. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Welcome. Collard greens over there, cornbread right here.
Hell yeah.
Shit. I mean, people are like, I feel like a lot of the sense of community in general is gone because whatever we used to have in the old days as community fundamentals no longer exist.
Yeah,
And
true.
then we're all wondering why we can't get along anymore. Well, whatever we had in place was not good enough for you anymore. But we'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, we could ramble on about that stuff for probably hours.
I sure as hell don't want to sit on Greg Gutfeld's show arguing about it. Geez, I'll probably go to sleep. Ugh. Anyway.
Really glad we got to do this, and I appreciate you coming back.
Well, thank you, man. Hey, it's 420. Don't forget to light one up for John Halata. You hear me? Light one up for John Halata. He was our friend. He was our brother. One of the best talents in the Tulsa area ever. Spark one up for him today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll
Thunder
have to.
Underground, yo. Woo!
Oh yeah, yeah. One more thing. Yeah, this is
Sure.
podcast will be. I'll be hitting 10 years in mid-May, and
Oh,
the good
that's a
majority of
long
that 10
time.
years has included you on every single episode. That bumper at the end. Thunder Underground, y'all.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, baby. You know what I'm saying?
There you go, Sprout, the anti-hero. So glad to finally get him back on the podcast. Like I said up front, like we said in that interview, it had been way too long. So a huge thanks to Sprout for hitting me up there, giving me a call on Zoom so we could catch back up on what he's doing musically and a few other things. And yeah, Sprout, I assume you're listening to this at some point, so let's follow up on that and not wait another couple years to hang out, another 6 years to officially, record our voices talking. And until then, what I need you guys to do is check out Strength and Agony if you have not. You heard about them throughout that interview. You heard about them early on. So give them a follow on our socials. Check out their brand new song. Give them a follow so you don't miss any future updates. You can follow Sprout's personal page if you're not familiar with the fact that he has solo music under his name, Sprout the Anti-Hero. You need to check that out as well. He put out a great EP around that last time he was on the podcast in 2019. It's more I wouldn't say it's acoustic, but it's not distorted. It's a very laid back when you compare it to everything you know Sprout for, like Kingshifter and Strength and Agony now, and Green Country Irate, and Screaming Red Mutiny, Zero Cell. All the stuff he's been in has been heavy, groovy, all that great stuff. But if you want something a little bit different, if you're chilling out, tonight at midnight on 420, and you need something a little more chill, flip on some Sprout the Anti-Hero. How about that? And in that episode, Sprout mentioned a few things that I'm trying to remember here. I should have wrote everything down. But at one point he mentioned Mike Starkey. He was in both Green Country Irate and Screaming Red Mutiny with Sprout. And he's been on this podcast, of course, with Screaming Red Mutiny. He's been on it other times as well. So check those out. John Halata, like I said up front, was on the podcast. Unfortunately, only one time. But so thankful that he was a part of that episode of Sprout, episode 50. Sprout, like I said, episode 212 was the most recent. There's, I believe, 3 other ones besides that you can check out. He mentioned Doug Pinnick from King's X. He has not been on here, but the King's X guitarist Ty Tabor has been on this podcast. He mentioned Life of Agony when trying to describe some music there. Life of Agony. The bass player for Life of Agony, Alan Robert, has been on this podcast a couple times. I'm a huge fan of that band. Dusty Grant. His name came up multiple times. It came up early when I was talking, and then it came up throughout that interview. Dusty Grant has been on this podcast 2 or 3 times as well. And in fact, I've been on Dusty's podcast. I believe it was when he was doing it by himself. But Sprout and Dusty, that's another thing we should have kind of got into, because we hadn't really had an episode, I guess, since that happened. But Sprout and Dusty did a podcast for a while together, which was really good. Both those guys are very good. I wouldn't say long-winded, because when I use the term long-winded, I think of someone that just keeps talking for no reason. The thing I love about Sprout and Dusty is those guys can talk, and they can keep talking, but they're the type of dudes that I want to listen to talk. They're always saying something interesting. We had tons of great conversations about everything you could think of, from like stupidity to deep emotional shit, when we were on those 2 Booze, Bars, and Guitars tours. Hey, I'll just throw this out in the universe. I know Dusty stepped away from music, but, we should just have some kind of reunion in 26, maybe the summer of 26. Give ourselves a year, maybe not even a full-on 2 or 3 week thing. Just do like a 1 week run, just to get back out there, relive the glory days of the Sprout, Dusty, Trent, a little run there. But anyway, I digress. I think what got me off on that tangent was if you jump on Spotify, type in Dusty Grant and Thunder Underground, you'll see his episodes where he was on here, but you should also see me on his podcast. So check that out. Hey, if you want to if you're super into like listening to me talk for some weird ass reason, which I can't imagine many people are, but I've been on other podcasts as well. I've been on a Metallica podcast. But hey, that's kind of pointless. What I'm going to tell you now is that you can check out all those previous episodes, like some of the guys I just mentioned. There's been members of Megadeth, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, Shinedown, Hellstorm, Seven Dust, Living Colour, Whitesnake, Leonard Skinner, Deep Purple, Twisted Sister, Queensryche, Devil Driver, Motley Crue, Testament, Tesla, LA Guns. Man, I was on a roll there. Helmet, Prong, White Zombie, Typo Negative, Saliva, The list is great. The list is long. Vanilla Ice has been on this podcast, my friends. And that's not a joke. And that was a really fun episode. I've had on members of Breaking Benjamin. Recently had on members of Onslaught. Had on Phil X, who is the guitarist in Bon Jovi. Took over for Richie Sambora about a decade ago. There's so much stuff that spans the gamut of, what you would call pop rock or pop metal like Bon Jovi, and clear up to, some blast screaming shit like the Black Dahlia Murder. Members of all these bands have been on this podcast in the past. War. I know that Sprout's a big War fan. Check it all out. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen to everything right there. You can also listen pretty much anywhere podcasts are heard, like Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcast and all that stuff. So wherever you're listening right now, like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Get on all the socials. They're also listed right there on TheThunderUnderground.com. And give Thunder Underground a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok. I post content on there almost every single day. So check that out and give that a follow as well. All right, it's time to quit rambling about all this stuff and say once again a huge thank you to Sunset Tattoo, DEB Concerts, Rocklahoma Bitches, and of course, my good friend Sprout. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.